1974. It's a great year. We all graduated from high school, didn't we? 40 years ago. 40 years ago. Oh, man. I tell you what. Well, I'm glad tonight that we can come together and reminisce. And I'd like to talk a little bit, about my life in Humble and my friends in Humble and me. Oops. Sorry. Don't mean to be such an egotistical, you-know-what. But no, I'd really like to talk about it because I really haven't seen you guys in 40 years. When I graduated, I pretty much just left Humble. I went off to college, then went to Dallas and Los Angeles, and Nashville. Pretty much didn't look back for some reason. I'm not sure why. And then the internet came along, and it really opened up a world of people. Don Neiman was probably the first person from Humble really to reach out and contact me. It was some kind of, I think it was called High School Reunion or some kind of new connection thing that came up. And then along came Facebook. And with Facebook, opened up a whole world of getting back in touch with people. And even Alan Whitney is on the internet. It's kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? Anyway, so tonight I'm talking to you from my studio here in Nashville, and pan over and show them some stuff here. Go ahead. So that's lots of stuff, lots of memorabilia, and as you can see back here, I even have my old letter jacket and the shirt that we wore on football days. Can you believe that? Thank God for my mom preserving stuff like that, which, I look back on it now, and I think a lot of us look back and say, God, we had it easy, didn't we? It was fun, despite the fact that we were in high school and we didn't want to go to school, we didn't go to classes, a lot of things we didn't want to do, but we really didn't realize how good we had it. I moved to Humble in 1968, and right into the 7th grade is where I started at Bender. Wow. I don't think I remember being any grass out front. It was like all just dirt and everything. And it was a bit of a culture shock for me because I'd come from Pasadena and Houston, and it was, kind of a city kid coming to the country. But so that was, but I lived in Forest Cove. Let's face it, Forest Cove was like all the rich kids, right? And that it was like the two sides of the track. There was like these two groups of people, it was like the surfers and the hippies, rich kids, and the cowboys or the country hicks, whatever, and it was like this two different types of people that almost went head on with each other at times, and I really didn't identify with that whole mentality. I mean, I kind of really lived in both worlds. And I had friends in Forest Cove, Don Neiman, and I had friends in Humble, such as Frank Holloway and Quentin Salmon and Carlos Silas, and a lot of these guys that were on the football team. So I kind of lived in both worlds. I never really wanted to be just a hippie surfer or a cowboy or whatever. And so I kind of lived in both worlds. I never forget the first day of like 7th grade. I was sitting in front of or behind, I'm not sure, Frank Holloway. This may not be the story, I don't know. This is what I remember, and I'm lucky to remember anything. But what I remember is sitting in class and being, in front of or behind Frank Holloway. And I was a new kid in town, really didn't know that many people, but he was nice to me. We talked, and he said something about, he told me he was going to go out for football and play quarterback. And I was like, well, I'm going to go out for football too, and I'm going to probably be a lineman, or something like that, like my dad, and maybe your center. And actually, I did end up being his center for the next 3 years. I know through junior high and even our freshman year, I played center. The thing about football was it really was kind of the great equalizer, because it really didn't matter where you lived or how much money your parents made or what your parents did. If you couldn't cut it on the football field, then it didn't really matter, okay? Because it was not, you couldn't buy your way into a position to play football. You else played and you made it, or you sat on the bench, or you quit. You couldn't make it because it wasn't easy. I remember we had Coach Pruitt when I was in like 7th and 8th grade, and he was a tough cat. He had some funny things he would say. I remember he used to say, "Let her rip, tater chip," And another one he would say to me when I would screw up would be, "You're more worthless than a tit on a boar hog." I'm not sure where he came up with that one, but when I say I lived in like the two worlds, the other side of the world that I lived in was Don Neiman, and he was my friend, and Steve Brownlow, who actually lived in Humble, but he was really kind of that. He was a kind of a guy that lived in both worlds too, and it's really funny that both of those guys are gone. Steve left us at a very, very early age. Steve Brownlow was definitely the leader of our gang. I'd met Don because he lived in Forest Cove, and he had a sister named Margie, and I'll never forget the day I was riding I had like a Honda 50, and I'm riding around the neighborhood, and I'll never forget coming down Don Neiman Street, and he's out playing basketball with these two girls in his driveway, and I'm like, "Whoa, who are those girls?" And I stopped and said, "Don," I just barely knew Don. I said, "How you doing, Don? Who is that?" "Oh, these are my sisters, Margie and Patty." And I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna make Don a good friend of mine, that's for sure. But once getting to know Don, I got to know Steve because he was friends with Steve Brownlow, and Steve was, let's face it, Steve was the cool guy in junior high. I mean, he's like James Dean and Steve McQueen, kind of wrapped up into one. He was, there was something about him, just the attitude that Steve had that, make you, he could cut you in two with his words, or maybe he could just kick your butt, he had that, there was just something about him. And I always loved hanging out when we were like bad guys. We would be like, we'd go and sneak off and smoke cigarettes, stuff like that. We would sneak out of school. I mean, we were bad, right? in today's world, we were like doing nothing, nothing. Oh yeah, and desert boots. Remember that? We had to have. I'll never forget. Steve had desert boots, and Don had desert boots. I had to have desert boots, and I'd forget telling my mom, I got to have a pair of desert boots. It's like that was part of being in the gang, right? You had to have those desert boots. So I'll never forget one night there was a thing we did. It was the craziest thing. We had this at my house. We had this lot next to our house, which was an empty lot. And it was like an acre-sized lot, whatever. And we decided that we were going to camp out one night there. Me and Don, Steve, a couple other guys. I can't remember who else. But we decided to camp out. We were going to camp out right next to our house, whatever. I mean, like, and but we were going to do this because we wanted to do some serious drinking, right? Okay, so Don stole some booze from his dad's liquor cabinet, and I stole some from mine, and I'm not sure if Steve or who else brought some. And so basically we had like serious liquor, and we were knocking this stuff down. And somebody said if you run around a tree, you'll get drunk faster. So we started running around the trees, and then we were running down the street. I think we ended up losing whatever food we had eaten that night. And I can't remember if I woke up in the tent or woke up in my yard or what happened, but that was one of the craziest little campouts I've ever been on. So Steve Brownlow, he was a character and just a different kind of guy for sure. Now Don Neiman was the guy who reconnected me back into Humble. If it hadn't been for him, I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else would have at some point, but he really made me see the value in all the people that I'd gone to school with, like him. And I was lucky in 2010 to have a trip to Houston, and I was able to take some time off and take some time and go to Humble, come see some old friends. And Don was the one that mainly I wanted to see. Of course, coming to Humble was kind of different, from the little town that we used to live in. It's like where'd all this stuff come from? I felt like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. Oh, where's this? Pottersville. Like, Potter's taking over. It's just lots of stuff. But anyway, so getting back to I was able to go and visit with Don and his mom, and I didn't realize that he was sick at that time. And 3 years later, 2013, Don died, and I miss him. He was probably one of my closest friends. I would say easily one of my oldest friends that I can remember knowing, along with Frank Holloway, like I talked about Frank. And I did get to see Frank also in 2010. And I got to visit with Alan Whitney, who one of my oldest friends as well, and one of the greatest guys. One of those guys that would just, would kill for you if if you asked him to. Another guy that, friend of mine that is gone now, Bill Urquhart. I'm not sure if how many people remember Bill. He was, I guess, if he was in our high school class now, and we were in high school, he would be a nerd. He had like glasses, and he was a little squirrely, and not real athletic, but he was a great guy. He was a good guy, and great heart. I'll never forget riding one day with Bill. We were riding down some trail near his house. And I remember going down the trail, and then the next thing I remember is waking up at his house in like this recliner. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, Stan, you ran into a tree. And so I'll never forget Bill and his family taking care of me that day after I'd run into a tree. So maybe that's my problem. Maybe it's just my brains are all mixed up in here, So I wish that everyone that we had lost was still with us. Would be great, wouldn't it? God has a plan, and I don't know what it is. He hadn't let me in on it. So I guess as long as I'm above ground, I can thank God for that. I can thank God that I have friends like you guys that I've got to reconnect with and get to know a little bit again, and then hopefully I'll be able to make some more reunions. If I'm not at this one, am I at this one? I'm not sure. But thanks again. I am humbled, and I do thank you for your prayers. And be blessed. Good night.
Life, so they say, is but a game, and they let it slip away. Love, like the autumn sun, should be dying, but it's only just begun. Like the twilight in the road up ahead, they don't see just where we're going, and all the secrets in the universe whisper in our ears. All the years come and go, take us up, always up. We may never pass this way again. We may never pass this way again. We may never pass this way again. Dreams, so they say, are for the fools, and they let them drift away. Peace, like the silent dove, should be flying, but it's only just begun. Like Columbus in the olden days, we must gather all our courage, sail our ships out on the open sea, cast away our fears and all come and